My name is Jerry Gill. Today is April 6, 2010. I'm visiting with Amy Weeks in the Oklahoma State University campus in Stillwater, Oklahoma. This interview is for the Old State Storage Project of the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program. Amy, appreciate you taking time to visit with us today. I know you got a lot going on, and we're kind of got the door closed in your office and some quiet time. Thank you. First of all, if you don't mind me kind of complimenting you just a little bit, I don't care, embarrassing the front end, but you're very special to Oklahoma State University Intercollegiate Athletics. You have served as an outstanding student athlete, a highly successful head coach, and as associate athletic director, senior woman administrator for the past 6 years. Is there anything you haven't done with the OSU athletic program?
Oh, there's a lot that I haven't done, but
I thought maybe somewhere you might have swept the floors or some of that as
if
well.
I need to, I certainly will. Absolutely.
First of all, can we step back though and talk a little bit about your early life, about where you grew up, about your family?
Mm-hmm.
Can you share some information about that?
I grew up in Abilene, Texas, and both my parents lived in. My dad is from Texas, born and raised.
Mm-hmm.
My mother was a military kid,
Mm-hmm.
born in California. Grew up, spent most of her childhood in California, and then her dad retired from the Navy in Fort Worth, and so she ended up graduating high school in Fort Worth, and then has lived in Texas the rest of her time, and still lives there now. And grew up a family that did a lot of stuff together, and was able to grow up on a golf course, and then played a lot of golf with my father, and decided to come to Oklahoma State University.
Well, Amy, did you have any brothers and sisters?
I do. I have a little sister, Sarah Jane Weeks. She lives in New York City. She is highly accomplished at anything she does. She's the smart one of the two. She went to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. She also went to a private boarding school in Georgia on full scholarship, and then was able to have a better chance to get into an academic institution that she felt suited her from that position. Went to Chapel Hill. She graduated in 3 years. Worked for Southern Progress in the magazine business for a little bit. Moved to New York City. Received a culinary education. She worked as a general manager of a very well-established restaurant for 5 years in New York, and then decided to quit the rat race of the food business, and she joined her husband's production company, and Dima Productions in New York City, and they have a child, Elizabeth, and who's 7 months old now, and they work their production company and their business every day.
And what did your dad do? First of all, you grew up where now?
Abilene, Texas.
Mm-hmm. What did your dad do?
My dad is an attorney.
Okay.
And he's now a state district judge in the 42nd District Court in Texas. His father before him was an attorney. And they're all graduates of the University of Texas. My mother's a graduate of the University of Texas. I was the first person in, I guess, at being third generation, I was the first person not to go to the University of Texas. I'm the oldest grandchild on both sides of my family, and I was the first person not to go there. My mother had 3 brothers. 2 of them had degrees from University of Texas. My father had 3 brothers, and 2 of them have degrees from the University of Texas. My grandfather went to the University of Texas, and his sister, who's still living and is 96 years old, went to the University of Texas and has a degree from there.
I want to get back to that story a little bit. There's got to be a good story there. So, and your mother, did she work in the home, or did she have a
she has a degree, like I said, from University of Texas. She worked in the fashion industry when she first got out of school at Sakowitz in Houston, and then at they moved to Lubbock when my dad went to law school at Texas Tech, and she worked at another, it was like a fancy lady store there in Lubbock. I can't think of it right off the top of my head, but worked there for years as a buyer. Then when my dad moved into private practice in Abilene, she stayed at home with us, and she sold some clothes out of the house. And then my parents divorced when I was about 8 years old. She worked in an office for a little bit after that, and then started selling Mary Kay Cosmetics. She sold Mary Kay Cosmetics. I'm 35, so since I was since I was about 9 or 10, so at least 25 years,
Wow.
and has driven a pink Cadillac almost every one of those years. So does up to about $500,000 in cosmetic every year out of her unit. So
You get the pink Cadillac, you got to sell a lot of American
you got to sell a lot of mascara. Yeah.
That's great. What growing up, Amy, were there some principles, some values that you learned that from your family that influenced you later in your life and influenced your success?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we grew up and you were always expected to work, and but you were also expected to have a really good time and really enjoy what you do. And my father's parents, very, very close to them, and I mean they were always right there with us, whatever we did, and really encouraged us and supported our athletic careers, our athletic endeavors, our academic endeavors were very important to them. They wanted us to bring our report cards home. I think they instilled the expectation of success in us. I mean, everything was very out on the table. How did you do in school today? What did you do in school today? There were no secrets. And if you didn't do well, then, I didn't want to disappoint anybody. So there was a level of expectation of success, and then the pride that came with that. And I think their positive reinforcement really helped shape, my sister and I both.
Thank you. Were there school and community activities that you participated in addition to golf?
Oh, yes, sir.
Could you share some of the things you did growing up?
Sure, just about everything. I danced growing up, ballet and tap. I've picked tap back up recently, which has been really, really fun. I played soccer until I had to start making choices about competitive sports. I played basketball well into high school. I threw the shot put and track in the off season. I went to a 3A school in Texas, and so everybody participated in everything. If you played basketball, you were required to run cross country. If you played basketball, you were required to run track in the off season to try to stay in shape. I played golf, so I tried to do a little bit of both. I played tennis at the country club growing up. I played golf, obviously, with my family growing up. And we went to summer camp every summer for 3 weeks. It was a sports camp. So we learned how to water ski. We learned how to do, play badminton. Everything. So,
well, you were, as you mentioned, you were an outstanding golfer. It was at Wiley High School?
Wiley High School.
In Abilene. And
I don't know how outstanding I was, but I did it.
As I recall, looking at your background, Amy, you won the medalist honors in Class 3A your junior and senior year and at the state tournament.
And my sophomore year, I think I lost in the playoff. That stunk.
Oh, my goodness. You still remember that loss?
Yeah, I still remember that.
I think you're a pretty competitive person. Yeah. But, so you were talking about your dad and golf. Can you talk a little bit about your background in golf, how you become interested in golf and some of your youth golf experiences?
Sure. My dad and his brothers all played golf, and I was privileged when I was about 5. My parents built a brand new home on a golf course in Abilene, Texas. It was called Fairway Oaks at the time. I think it's changed names recently. We were one of the first homes on the back 9, and the house was on was it the 12th green, 10, 11, 12? Sorry, I haven't been there in a while. 9. 10, 11, 12, 12th green. And so I grew up with literally a golf course in my backyard. And that golf course was started by some guys in the oil business in the early 80s and late 70s in Texas. And so they had a lot of money and they built a very nice golf course. Well, they brought in a lot of big golf tournaments. They brought in big junior golf tournaments, big amateur golf tournaments. They brought in a PGA Tour event as well. So from a very young age, I was able to sit on a green and watch. Anybody that played the game, in the early 80s, watched them come through and play professional golf. And I literally was able to just sit there and watch them. And they throw me golf balls and give me visors and the whole deal. But so I think I was influenced by that, early on. And we did a lot of private housing at our home. So when they had junior events and amateur events, who knew that not 20 years later, but 10 years later, I would be doing the same thing, going to people's houses, staying in private housing. And so we would house junior golfers from around the country in our home, and you kind of got to know them a little bit, and it was very inspiring. And and then my father's brother, Jimmy, he died when he was about 33, but he was a professional golfer, a club pro, a PGA pro.
Okay.
Didn't play the tour, but ran a shop and played all through high school, and that was a strong influence on my family as well. So, it was really kind of a family thing. It was a family game, a family sport. Something that my dad did in his every bit of his spare time. My grandfather did in his spare time, and something we could do as a family. They never pushed me to it because I was very motivated to play team sports at that time in my life, and I'd much rather go play soccer than go practice, hitting golf balls. But they certainly exposed me to the game. I had private lessons with Charles Cootie, I think he won the Masters in 78, and maybe it's a little earlier than that, 76, 74, something like that. But he gave me my first golf lesson and just kind of blossomed from there. And it was something that my dad and I spent time together doing.
When did you first start playing competitive golf?
Not really competitive until in middle school, but I certainly dabbled in it. Hit golf balls with my family, or went out on the course. Was very aware of the game, and very in tune to the game from a very early age.
Okay.
Probably about 5.
You're talking about some of the golfers there, Amy. Did you have some role models, both men and women, on the tour that you recall that you followed?
No, I don't really think role models. I never really followed them that closely, but they just you just watch them, and you just knew that it's a pretty cool game, and they would be around or come over for barbecues in the night. They had a caddy program for local people that knew the golf course to caddy for the pros, and so people, we got to know them in our family, and it was pretty interesting. I wouldn't say that I remember any one icon, being a role model. To me, it was just more about, the environment, of the game. And the social aspects of it, and that was really special to me. Yeah.
How well were golf and other women's sports supported and promoted in your school and your community at that time?
Very well. Extremely well. And it's something I talk to right now with my friends here in Stillwater. I think that the high school where I grew up, even in the mid 80s, was better supported, in my opinion, with quality coaching and organization then than it is today in Stillwater.
Was your high school coach influential?
Absolutely, no question. The golf part was kind of gravy. It was just a football coach that helped us. So I wouldn't call him, quote, influential really in my golf career, but certainly in attitude and work ethic. And then my basketball coach was extremely influential. Oh. Yeah, very, very.
So, and you played basketball up
until my junior year. Okay. I finally had to start playing in golf tournaments during the school year, and she didn't think that was a very good idea to not practice, basketball at that level, which made sense. I understood. So I chose to play golf because I knew it had a future for me.
Well, speaking of that, when did you know that golf was your game? That's where you're going to excel at, try to play at the college level.
Well, I think that probably my sophomore year when, because I didn't do very well my freshman year in high school golf. I had some good rounds, but not anything outstanding. In my sophomore year, I spent a little bit more time on it and practiced a little bit more in the summer, and then realized the opportunities that I had, ahead of me, and so I think things just started to make sense that, this is something I can do that I'm so much better at than my peers locally. And I'm starting to possibly compete at a state level or a national level. And I think the possibility of that success really changed my mind.
I
didn't jump high enough to really be a basketball player.
Well, this has been in the early 1990s in high school. Were college scholarships pretty standard, pretty available at that time for women golfers?
Yes. Yes, they were.
Okay. I'd like to visit with you a little bit about that recruiting process. You were recruited by would have been then Coach Ann Pitts.
Yes.
Do you remember about the recruiting process? What do you recall? And how influential was Ann on your decision to run Oklahoma State? Now I want to couple that question with. After that, I want to ask you about why OSU not Texas.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's easy. But no, the recruiting process, I gained some national attention. I won a national junior golf tournament and was more competitive in some other areas in the American Junior Golf Association, which is still very prominent in recruiting today. And so actually, Ann recruited me, but also Bruce Hepler recruited me, who was an assistant coach for the men's team as well as the women's team. And he was out, doing recruiting, and he and I built a relationship as well. And so that was, that was really important to me. There was a young man that played for Mike Holder named Jackson Brigman from my high school. Jackson played for Oklahoma State. I think he played on 2 national championship teams for coach. And so there was kind of a tie, with what we knew was familiar. And so that's when, when the Oklahoma State prospects really came up, it became a very real prospect for myself. So, she just, they would come out just no different than I did when I was a coach and, watch you play and, and show interest and communicate and set up a visit to come up here and look around.
What was your perception of OSU's program, Amy, at that time?
Well, they were ranked, I think, second in the country that fall when I signed my letter of intent. So it was a really special opportunity, and I think when you couple that with the success that the men's program had and the young man that I knew very well that was on the men's team, it just made a lot of sense for myself and for my family.
Did it make sense for your family?
Yeah.
With their Texas grads?
Yeah, and that's been one of the greatest things about my family. Is that they've never once in the recruiting process, and I remember being at my dad's office and sending out all the letters, to all the top 25 schools, and I remember getting a letter back from Stanford, and I was recruited by Wake Forest, and I had some nice opportunities. I wouldn't say that I was actually recruited by Stanford, but I did get a letter back from them, and I remember doing all that, but my dad was just very much. He had told both my sister and I, you can go to school wherever you want to go to school. And he was going to pay for our undergraduate degrees, whether we had scholarships or not. And so if we got into, I don't know how much it cost to go to Harvard, but if we got into Harvard and he would pay for us to go there. And if we wanted to go to Stanford and go to California, if I wanted to go to UCLA, if I was going to go to Texas A&M, he wouldn't like it, but he would have supported me.
And it would have been tough, wouldn't it?
And he was just both my parents are extremely open-minded and extremely supportive of the decision-making process, and I think that just complements them in the way they raised us to make decisions.
Well, speaking of the scholarship, what kind of, did you get a partial aid scholarship?
Yeah, I did. I did. The first 2 years I was on partial. I had 50%, and my junior and senior year I had a full scholarship.
Which, put that in perspective, for incoming freshmen, regardless of how good you were, it's almost impossible to get a full scholarship at that time, wasn't it?
Well, I think if you had been a little bit better than me, then it was certainly possible. I certainly played with people that had full scholarships, but that's where they felt that I ranked in the pecking order, and I think that was pretty accurate, actually.
So your scholarship offer was pretty.
Yeah, I think it was very fair.
Fair.
Very fair.
And how did they compete or compare rather with, say, the men's golf program? Were most of those full scholarships, or were there some partials there as well?
No, I think almost all of those were partials. But men's golf has fewer scholarships to work with than women's golf does, and so they actually had more people on their team than we did. So I think theirs were even smaller apportionments.
Great. You entered OSU in the fall of '93. Correct. What were your first impressions of the campus in Stillwater?
Well, I just felt like it was a really comfortable place, and you could kind of be yourself here, and it felt easy to get around, and it felt a lot like home to me. I'm obviously from being from Abilene, Texas. It's a generally conservative, West Texas. It's a kind of a country kind of town. It's 110,000 people, so they like to think that they have a little bit of metropolitan, but really there's not that much there. So I think that Stillwater suited me for a college environment.
Now you had an interesting major. If I recall, culture and historical geography.
Yes.
Can you tell me about that?
Yes, I can. So I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I think some days I still don't know what I want to do with my life. I'm just lucky to have a great job that I try to work hard and do. But college was very exciting for me. I could study, so many different things, and they make you take all the basics. And I have a strong interest in social sciences, and I always did have a strong interest in social sciences and in history. And so when I took my world regional geography class as a required humanity, I left that class thinking, well, this is the greatest thing in the world. You get to study the rest of the world, and it's legitimate. And I just found it extraordinarily fascinating. And I had been able as a child to travel internationally. We had taken some family trips to other places in the world. And I just thought, this doesn't get any better than this. And I remember my dad saying, what are you going to do with that degree? And I thought, well, I don't know, Dad, I can do research, or I can travel, or I can teach. I said, I don't know. All I know is that I love to go to class, and talk about the rest of the world and learn about the rest of the world. And he said, well, okay, that's what you want to do. And, looking back, it probably wasn't the smartest thing to study, because it is a very specialized area, studying demographics of human behavior and different populations. But it still excites me to think about it today. And if I, decided that I'd leave athletics, then, maybe I could go back and study a little bit and try to get a job in that area.
Were there faculty members and staff who were influential in your student development?
Sure. Actually, I think his name was George Carney. And he was a really good teacher, and very outgoing, and he was very heavily into the cultural side of studying human demographics, and did a lot of study with music and how different music regionalizes around the United States, and then also spent a lot of time with I think it's Dale Lightfoot, who's still on campus as well. And then there was another guy that did a Central America class that I really enjoyed. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. But then I think Michael Smith, also out of the history department, I don't know if he's still on campus or not. He did all of our, Central and South American, Mexican histories, Hispanic histories early. And it was very, very, very interesting to me. I really enjoyed that.
Did you take the geography of sports class?
What's funny is that I don't know that I ever did. I think I was kind of keeping sports at an arm's length. At that time in my life, was more interested in trying to go towards the more the historical side of that area. But I do know Dr. Rooney very well, and he's been very supportive of my career, and I've obviously talked to him. If I had stayed in geography, I would have ended up in that area, obviously, just because of what I learned in athletics. And it was just it's too good of a mix. And obviously, he has a strong business with golf, and worked with Golf Digest on a big demographic project. And I have friends that were in graduate school at the time that worked on that project, so I knew a little bit about it at the time. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Bill Ivey as my advisor, because he was very supportive of my curiosity and of my interest in other areas. So he gave me a lot of confidence to study whatever was interesting.
Amy, with the demands in your time as a student athlete, were you able to participate in student organizations or activities outside of golf, or that pretty much it?
That's it. I did. I did some stuff with geography, just within the department, but no other student organizations. Just played golf and probably had too much fun, and then tried to do well in the classroom.
Well, speaking of fun, but aside from golf, which I hope was fun as well, but do you have some favorite student memories of Oklahoma State University outside of golf?
Yeah, I don't know if I can talk about them on camera, though. I don't know if I want them to be remembered in an oral history project.
What would you be willing to share with us?
No, I had a lot of fun teammates, and we spent a lot of time, clowning around and doing silly stuff in our spare time, and frequent the strip too often, but
just observing, of course.
But having a really good time, and I remember sometimes when it would snow occasionally, when we get the golf team together and we'd find a place to go sledding or go on great adventure. We had fun, and I mean, nothing specific because it's occasionally incriminating, but we had a really good time.
Where did you live as a student athlete?
I lived in, I think it was called Bennett. Wasn't it called Bennett Hall?
Yeah.
No. Bennett Hall's across the street.
Mm-hmm.
It was, what's the other big high rise?
Wilhelm. Mm-hmm.
That's the one.
Okay.
Wilhelm.
Right. The one they tore down?
That's right. Second floor. Lived there my freshman year, and then I moved off campus.
Mm-hmm. Amy, speaking of kind of your lack of probably social life in the golf, but could you describe a typical week of practice and preparation for the Cowboy golf team under Coach Pitts? What was it like? What was your schedule? Could you walk us through a typical week?
Sure. For our strength and conditioning at the time, we would walk stadium stairs. Ann was a big believer in lower body strength and to try to do interval training because it obviously matched very similar to walking a golf course.
Right.
And so we would do stadium stairs at 6 a.m. 3 times a week. And so we did that. And so for 7 years, 4 as an athlete and 3 as an assistant coach, I walked stadium stairs 3 times a week. And I need to be doing that still, but I don't. And that was actually the first thing I changed when I became head coach. And so we walked stadium stairs, 6 a.m. And then we did some other weight training after that, and some upper body and some stretching. And then so we would have practice, 5 or 6 days a week, or we would qualify, and play 18 holes for a ranking position, on the team. So, easy from 2 to 6. Twice a week we would have short game practice, or from 1 to 6 we would play 18 holes twice a week, and then we would often play and have qualifying on the weekend where we would go out, play 18 holes, and then practice a little bit afterwards, and then be done. So
could you describe a little bit the strength and conditioning program for particularly that was just coming in, I guess, really for women athletes, and particularly in sports like golf where traditionally they didn't do that? Could you talk a little bit about some of the kinds of exercises you did?
Well, back then when I was an athlete, they weren't very specialized. Anne, did some research on her own and would try to kind of put a program together for us. We had a staff member here that kind of helped us, but not really. When I was a coach, it was a much different, much more integrated program. We had the new facility downstairs in Gallagher-Iba Arena, and we had a lot more expertise and a few people kind of putting their mind together to get a performance plan, for our athletes. So it was much different. So when I was an athlete, I can't really say that it was anything special, but as time progressed, the 3 years that I was an assistant, we spent more time, integrating a more comprehensive flexibility program. Also the core, strength, for your trunk was when you turn, and trying to increase the level of power and impact, when you hit a golf ball.
Nice.
And then when I was a head coach, it was a totally different deal. We had a strength and conditioning coach downstairs that worked with us, 3 to 4 times a week actually. And we spent a lot of time on flexibility, a lot of time on core balance, a lot of time on left-right brain integration. So making sure you use the left side of your body as much as you do to the right. So you don't want to, you want to be flexible in both ways, but you want to be flexible both ways in your head too, with the way your muscles react.
Just sort of moving to where you were as a coach and picking up in your conversation, how many times a week, how many hours did you spend in that kind of training?
When I was coaching, we would probably spend an hour and a half, 3 to 4 times a week, depending on our schedule. You only are supposed to, and I say supposed to because it's very hard in golf to get only 4 hours a day of training in. It takes 4 hours to play a round of golf and qualifying. So, we would not have strength and conditioning on the days we would qualify, when we just had to arrange the schedule so that the athletes could work out, go to class, go to practice, have time to study, and try to have some semblance of regular life as well.
What was there a coach designated to work with you on those?
Yeah, strength and conditioning coach, yes sir.
And so it was, what I hear you saying, it was sort of interesting, really, in just about a 8-year span that changed quite a bit.
Yes,
in
dramatically.
Golf.
Yes, it did.
So strength and conditioning programs are very much a part of women's golf programs today.
Absolutely. And and being for the young ladies to be able to build their strength, the core conditioning, the coordination, the footwork that we would integrate. I mean, people would watch our team work out and they'd wonder what team it really was. But it's very important for me as a coach, to raise the athleticism of the player so that you get a total package on the golf course and not just someone that can hit a golf ball to a certain place. You need stamina, you need confidence, you need that mental toughness that a tough strength and conditioning program can bring out in someone. And just because someone can hit a golf ball down the fairway at a reasonable length and can putt and chip doesn't mean they can spend 8 hours on a golf course in a competitive setting and be as sharp at the end of it as they were in the beginning. And the thing about college golf is that it takes the entire year, and you're away from school for 5 full days, and you have to be able to keep everything together. You have to be able to travel, you have to be able to sleep and rest at a hotel, you have to be able to have proper nutrition and hydration, and you have to be able to perform on the golf course. And the things that you learn in the weight room, running a ladder drill, no different than a soccer team was, to me translates very well into a golfer, into that competitive edge. And when I was coaching, my philosophy was to try to really work on the things I knew I could control. Well, if I could affect the fitness level of our team, then I knew that I could beat more than half the field almost every week.
Great. I want to come back and pick that. That's interesting. I want to pick up on a little bit more than Amy, and I appreciate you sharing that. I want to ask you about, and in what ways did Coach Pitts contribute to your development as a golfer? I
mean, tremendously. I think the 4 years that I was with her as an athlete, I was still probably very much just like any 18, 19, 20-year-old, thought I knew it all and, thought I had it all figured out. And, I did not perform as well in my junior and senior year as I should have, and that was very disappointing. I had a shoulder injury that affected me a little bit that I did have to have surgery on. And but during that time, I think I also realized that I had a lot of growing up to do. And, so I would say that the more impactful years between she and I, when she was really coaching me the most, were the 3 that I was an assistant coach. And we literally spent, day in and day out together. And I was able to take my experience as an athlete, compare it to what we were doing then in the program as a coach, and then figure out a model of success going forward. And I think some of my shortcomings as an athlete helped me be a much better coach.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and I used to tell my team, and Annie Young and I talked about it last week, and she, they used to laugh at me and think I was joking, but I'm serious, is that I wouldn't have been able to make my own golf team. I would have kicked myself off because I just didn't have that extra edge that I think is really, really, really imperative to be, a top 5 or number 1 team in the country. And so I learned a lot those 3 years as an assistant coach from her.
What about facilities? Where did you work out, practice?
As an athlete or as a coach?
Well, did you start off, I'm not sure when you made the transition to Carson, but first of all, as an athlete?
Yeah. Well, Carson opened in 1995, and I was here then.
Okay.
And it was still a very young golf course, and so we played out there a little bit, not as much as they do now, which is 100% almost out there now. But we played a lot at Stillwater Country Club, and we were able to practice and play out there. But then also, I don't know if you remember or not, but there was on 19th and Sanger, there's a corner lot there where there's duplexes now. Across the street from that Conoco, there's a Conoco Phillips right there. There's a brand new Stillwater National Bank there now.
Right.
Well, there was a man that owned that section of land named Dale Ringwald. And the men's and women's golf teams practiced out there for years on his land. He would mow the land, prepare it. He had flags set up all over his acreage where we could go take our own golf balls and practice and play. And he and Mike were longtime friends. He and Ann Pitts were longtime friends. And so we had shag bags that we were given every year full of golf balls, and we were responsible obviously for hitting our golf balls in practice, but for picking them up ourselves as well. And it's a great way to target practice, and it really gives you a lot of ownership in where that golf ball goes, because you treat it just like you do on the golf course. And there's a whole other, area of, driving range practice really doesn't mean anything. It's when you have to be 100% responsible for every single shot, just like you do when you play competitive in your practice, that actually mirrors a better integrated approach.
So you play like you practice.
Right, that's exactly right. And Dale Ringwald was his name. And I don't think he's still alive. And he was actually related to Molly Ringwald, the actress. And he lived there for years and years and had a home there on that land, had a water cooler out for us every day, and we practiced and played on his land, men's and women's golf.
Amy, when you transferred to Karsten, did the women's program have full access to facilities like the men did?
Yeah, not exactly at first. I'll be 100% honest with you. But after a period of time, then yes.
The possessive part of it, and then it's wore off. It changed a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So did you have your permanent locker room assignments there in Karsten?
Well, we didn't have locker rooms there for years because there was no clubhouse. I mean, Coach Holder built it, where he paid for cash, and he raised money and built the golf course, step by step. So he raised the money for the golf course, built the golf course. And then there was a small parking lot with a double wide trailer out there. And there was no locker facility, there's bathroom facilities.
Right.
And so we practiced and played, out of that for years. And it wasn't until I was a head coach, I don't think, that the clubhouse was built.
Where did where was the team locker room, so to speak? Where did you dress out and keep your uniforms and equipment at that time?
There never was one until he built the big clubhouse at Karsten.
So each team player like yourself, you just keep your equipment at your apartment?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's never been a locker room for women's golf other than what he built at Karsten Creek.
And they do have now, though. Okay.
Yeah. I wouldn't think they'd keep their uniforms there, though. They just keep them in their closet because, the golf clothes are a little bit different.
What do you remember about team travel and lodging?
That's fun stuff. A lot of fun stuff. A lot of great trips all over the country, both as a player and as a coach. I mean, I spent 11 years playing or coaching with women's golf here at OSU, and crazy fun stuff all over the place, whether it be from driving, or flying, or all over the place. I mean, Jerry, that's a whole other. That's a very broad,
Well, let's pick off some of it. And for example, how many tournaments did you travel to a year at that? When you're a player? Yeah,
you'd play 28 dates a year, and so you break that up into about 7 events. You played about three in about 4 in the fall, 4 in the spring, plus the postseason events.
So did you fly to most events?
It was a mix of both. We'd go to Albuquerque and fly, or we'd play at Prairie Dunes in Kansas, and we'd drive.
Team buses that we usually went?
It was a van. Like a 15-passenger van. Yeah. The ones they don't let us drive anymore because they're dangerous.
That's great. Well, what kind of lodging? I mean, you probably weren't staying at Taj Mahal, but then what?
Well, sometimes it felt like we did. Stayed at and we always stayed at very nice hotels. She always fed us really great. Went to really nice restaurants, and she would let us go to the mall and do some fun stuff. Or when we went to San Jose's tournament in California, we'd go to Carmel and walk around downtown and get to absorb the culture and the atmosphere and go to a dinner. Just a lot of mix of different stuff. Same thing in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I remember when I was a player, we'd always go down to Old Town and eat Mexican food one night, and really enjoy that and get a glimpse of what the local area was.
Was Ann pretty strict on what you ate, or did you just pretty much whatever you wanted to eat, or?
Yeah, she kind of let us eat whatever we wanted to eat.
So at that time, she figured you were mature enough to know what you could handle and not.
Yeah, that was probably a mistake.
And it's one of those we won't go there kind of thing.
Right.
Okay. Speaking of, we talked a little bit about the women's program and kind of how it intersected with the men's program. What do you remember about the relationship between Mike Holder and Ann Pitts? Was there a synergy there? Did they work together well, or?
Yeah, no, I mean, they weren't best friends by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that that was, because of some outside factors and influences. I do know that there was always probably an underlying mutual respect. I wouldn't say that was a warm and fuzzy time, for Ann. I mean, she was going through her lawsuit for equal pay with the university, and I think that there were some hard feelings around the whole department regarding that. And but she never ever once let it affect the way she treated us, or she never once said, one negative word about anybody in the entire department. She just tried to rise above it, do what she needed to do for herself and for other, coaches around the country and at OSU, and move on down the road.
You had two outstanding programs, both nationally competitive programs. Did the synergy? Did the programs?
The players hung out together all the time. The players were great friends. The players practiced together at Dale Ringwald's house, all the time, or play golf together on the weekends or whatever.
The success in one program helped really influence the other one.
I think so. I mean, we were definitely overshadowed by the men. I mean, they were winning. If you look, I don't know what years they actually won national championships when I was here. I think 2 out of the 4, so significantly better than what we did at the national level. But at the same time, it definitely helped mold my mindset in the future of what we needed to do as a program. It definitely affected me more looking back than I realized what it did then.
In what ways, Amy? You mentioned it impacted how you coached and what you did.
Sure.
Yeah, could you share some?
I mean, I think the whole time when I was in college and when I was an assistant coach, I paid attention to what the men were doing. I paid attention to what, how Coach Holder approached things. We didn't talk about it so much, but I have pretty big ears and pretty observant. And so I would watch some different, methodology about the way they practice. I mean, just picking up your own golf balls is something that just now other programs have started to do. And that's something that he did in his program 40 years ago. So, I mean, that was a huge thing. I mean, people used to make fun of us that we had to pick up our own golf balls like it was a negative thing. Well, that's like one of the greatest practice tools of the game. And so, I mean, there was just things like that. And then the mindset of that and how to translate that type of hard work into a positive as opposed to it becoming a negative. Because, in recruiting, that could quickly have become a negative. Oh, you have to pick up your own golf balls. That's a terrible place to go to school. Timeout. That's one of the reasons you need to come to school here is because of what that does for you as an athlete, and a golfer. So there were so many things that I picked up along the way. The discipline that he instilled in his team. The way that he actually required. I mean, it was a necessity that you manage your emotions properly on the golf course. That you approach everything one shot at a time and really effectively or attempt to effectively manage your emotions and how you react to things. And he was much more verbal about that than Ann was. Ann was a little bit more subtle in the way she approached things. And I think that's just a form of their personality. I mean, Ann certainly believed in the exact same things, but she was more subtle in her approach. And it took her probably more time to affect people's personalities. He actually, I think, required it a little bit, more firmly. And there's a good and a bad to that. I think you have to learn to blend both of those together to find how it's going to work with a player. And I think that I gained that from both of them. Especially when I was an assistant coach and I was very much more attuned to what was going on in the men's program those 3 years, just because of office work and office proximity, listening and learning and talking about things, and then knowing that I possibly had a chance to be the head coach, and I was, kind of mentally preparing myself for that possibility.
Before we get into your coaching, we're talking about your career. You had an outstanding career as a golfer. I know you played on 3 conference championship teams. You were medalist at the conference tournament. So what year was that?
95.
95. And so you talked about you could have been a better player, but you had some pretty outstanding credentials. All conference, academic All-American recognition. Can you share some special memories of your collegiate golfing career that stand out to you? Maybe ones you won, but other things.
Yeah. Special
experiences, special times.
Sure. There was a few. I think my sophomore year was definitely my best year. I had a career low round at a very reputable tournament, and in Albuquerque at the Dick McGuire against really good competition, and was able to play in the leader group that day. And the people that I played with that day are still playing on the LPGA Tour. And then that year I won the conference championship, and it was the Big Eight. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, the level of competition in the Big Eight in golf was not. But I don't know where I was, but I didn't. I played some good rounds in my sophomore year. It was very good. And then I practiced hard my freshman year and really learned a new level of work ethic. There was a senior on the team at the time that was very helpful to me as a role model. Mm-hmm. And she would, take me to practice. This is what you need to do, and that kind of. And that was really, really, really good. My sophomore year, I did pretty well, and then my junior year, kind of up and down, and quite honestly, I think once I had achieved a very high level, I think I thought it was just going to be kind of easy, and I could, just put it on autopilot and practice at the level I was. And obviously, that's not how you beat people in sports, and if you're not staying ahead of them, you're obviously going to be behind.
You also had some shoulder problems, didn't you?
Yeah, and I had an injury my junior year. My shoulder came out of socket when I was hitting a golf ball, and I had to have a rotator cuff surgery after that. And I think it affected me mentally more than anything. And then had to make some choices, at what level I was going to participate after that. But I think it wasn't because of my physical ability. It was really more between my ears and, how committed I was to it at the time. So, but Ann was very gracious and worked with me there. And, if you go back into the record books and look at the numbers, not even remotely as good, my junior and senior year. So it was kind of a peaked career, I think, and then kind of leveled off. But and I'm just being 100% honest about it. So, but I did play on some teams that did win, and that's all well and good. But I'd like to think that I contributed more after my 4 years as an athlete as opposed to when I was really a player with what I learned, I think.
Who were some of the women that you played with?
Oh, wow. Lots. Played with Jennifer Bartley, who was also from Houston. We were the same age, and she was a really very good player. Charlotta Eliasson, who was a Swedish player who played. I played with Anna Lindblom, another Swedish athlete. Nikki Gill, a girl named Arancha Sison, who was from Florida. There's just a bunch. JoJo Robertson, who's now the head coach at Texas Tech for women's golf, who was a two-time Public Links amateur national champion. We played together. Eva-Lotta Stromlid from Sweden. We played together. So there was a good group of people at that time.
You mentioned one of the teammates, the older teammates, kind of took you under wing.
Yeah, Charlotta Eliasson. Mm-hmm. And she was a full 4 years, ahead of me in school. But we were very good friends, spent a lot of time together, and she really helped me, stay more focused and get out to the practice range and work and do things.
During your years as student athlete and assistant coach, OSU transitioned with the Big Eight, which you said or wasn't maybe quite as strong at that time, mm-hmm. to the Big 12. Did that occur during your era?
Yes.
And how did that impact the team and the OSU golf program?
Well, I think it all of a sudden became more competitive in women's golf because Texas was very competitive at that time in women's golf. And, they came in and Kelly Keeney was playing for them and Heather Bowie, who both played the tour for some time. It was just like instantaneous competition. And I think what was pretty easy for Oklahoma State to win, Big Eight championships and win conference championships every year in women's golf. Ann's record in the conference tournament was really superb. Like, I think they won all but like 2 or something in her career. Literally maybe 3. And so, with the Big 12, it obviously became harder with Baylor and Texas and Texas A&M trying to be competitive, and they have been competitive, especially recently.
The OSU have to elevate its game, so to speak.
No question. And I think it's just a mental mindset of what they had to do to win.
Did that bring more attention to the program moving from Big 12, Big 8 to the Big 12?
Yeah, I think so. I think it gives everybody a lot bigger, place to hang their hat. I mean, it's good competition that moved in from the South, and especially in all of our sports.
When you completed your senior year, Amy, did you consider trying to make the pro tour?
Yeah, not really. No, I mean, it really wasn't something that I felt like I wanted to try to do. I think my performance over my senior year affected that, but I don't think that I had the work ethic to try to make a living or to be successful making a living, playing golf. And, it's a very, very hard lifestyle and very, very hard to make a living. And you've got to work, really, really hard. And just one of those things that I felt like I would be better suited to try to give back to the game here at Oklahoma State and help, Ann Pitts in an assistance role.
Well, picking up your comments, I think from 1997 to 2000, you served as a staff member and assistant coach with Ann Pitts. How did that opportunity come about? And was it a difficult decision for you to make?
No, not at all. I mean, it was actually really easy. We had an assistant coach at the time for 1 year that didn't really work out. And when she left, I remember walking into Ann's office and she and I talking about it. And Ann and I had a superb relationship. And I was really growing up a lot at that time and really thinking more, about the consequences of my decisions. And she said, I don't know what I'm going to do about getting an assistant coach. And I said, well, I think that we ought to talk about me being your assistant coach. And I said, because we work really well together, and I think I could help you. And it was kind of like a light bulb, kind of turned on for me, and I knew that I could help in that area. So
did you know you wanted to coach at that time?
No, not at all. But my choices were to continue in graduate school and continue my education and try to proceed in the world of demographic studies and in geography or cultural studies and geography, or try to test this thing out in golf. And I thought I know an awful lot about this game for me to just not be a part of it anymore. And that opportunity came about, and then she agreed to it a few months later.
Well, can you describe some of your responsibilities, Amy, as a staff assistant coach during this period?
Yeah, I helped her run practice. I helped, manage the team and coach them during qualifying, try to help them out on the golf course. I also began doing a lot of recruiting and all the correspondence with recruiting. And it was really, really a recruiting role at that time. So I would go out into national tournaments and travel and watch people play golf and just try to build relationships in different parts of the country and build up our recruiting base and our communication.
Kind of, what did you consider your recruiting base? Did you really recruit nationally or regionally?
No, nationally.
And did you follow a lot of the summer or amateur programs?
Absolutely.
And develop a relationship with high school coaches?
Not really high school coaches as much as people in the golf business or people that might know a player from a certain area of the country. But really, just in golf, it's a little bit different. You don't have as many middlemen or AAU coaches. They really don't exist. The high school coaches don't really participate, in the golf world as much. It'd be more of the swing coaches, actually. People that are giving actual golf instruction. That just used Ledbetter as an example. They have a high school that is an actual high school where people can go transfer there and practice and play golf and go to school. So that would be the best example of something like that. So building those relationships.
Did most of the outstanding players coming out of high school moving into to college come out of the amateur summer programs? Is what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's the same system that I grew up playing in as well, so I was very familiar with it.
Okay. How did you talked about kind of learning and being a sponge early in our conversation? How did being a staff member change your perspective on golf and the OSU golf program?
Well, I mean, it really gave me a strong appreciation for what, Ann and Mike both and the assistants, Bruce Epler at the time had done, over a period of time. I mean, all the correspondence that comes in daily from recruits that you owe a response back to. The phone calls that come in about, camps, or the phone calls that come in about, well, can my kid come play there? Even the responsibilities back out into the community, or as a staff member in the department, participating at whatever level, they needed us to, being out of the office more than half the day for practice, but yet getting, your work done that you needed to get done, running a fundraiser every year, communicating with donors, making sure that you were fulfilling, the total needs of the people, of the program, not the people, the program.
Well, kind of one step forward. Then when Ann, how did you know and learn that Ann Pitts would be stepping down?
Right.
And did you during that period that was it 4 years that you worked assistant coach?
3.
3 years. Did you think then about maybe stepping in as head coach? Had you and Ann had some conversations about that?
Yes, sir. The first year was kind of like just a test, okay, this is a fun thing to do. I didn't hardly make any money at all, but was technically a full-time staff member. And then the second year, they gave me a little bit more money. I was doing a good job, and same, requirements, responsibilities. Well, that year, basically what we found out was that because of Ann's lawsuit, she had signed an agreement to where she would have to retire in 2000. And so it was the athletic director at the time's discretion whether to enforce that settlement in the case or not. And so that you could probably just look that up on the disclosure of the settlement in public record, I'm sure. But and so Terry Dawn Phillips at that time chose not to renew her contract or to extend it. And so with that, and I knew probably 12 months before that they weren't really going to renew it. I mean, it was kind of in her mind that they weren't, and in my head that I needed to start thinking, okay, is this really something I want to do? Do I really want to go after that head coaching job? And so the third year that I was an assistant coach, I became much more involved in the practice aspects, the daily scheduling, the recruiting. I didn't do as much on-course coaching, and still took all the reins in that because you could only designate one coach for the 5 players, which has changed now. But pretty much ran everything else.
Amy, what when it came time to apply for the position, you told me you'd sort of prepared yourself in that last year to be coach. What can you tell me about the process and how that evolved and how you got the position?
Yeah, they opened up the job and I put in my formal application, and there was a search committee, and I remember meeting with Coach Holder, and Marilyn Middlebrook was on the search committee, and then Ann Bear at the time, and I remember meeting with Terry Dawn Phillips, and just going through the whole process, and they were gracious, and I tried to treat it like I had just met all of them, and tried to put a fresh look to it. I think it was important for me to establish myself as an independent candidate, even though I was an internal candidate, and then just go from there. And and the process was interesting. There were some issues that came up with some people involved in the process that were interesting, but at the end of the day, I ended up getting the job and moved on down the road.
Well, can you kind of share, I know this is asking you to be objective, but can you share why you felt like you were the best candidate and got the position?
Well, I think the other 2 candidates, one of them had never coached before, and the other candidate was the assistant coach that had been fired from working here, that had worked for Ann for a year, who Ann had asked to leave. And it's my understanding that there were no other national candidates that they looked at. Now, I could be mistaken, Jerry.
Amazing. A program like Oklahoma State University didn't attract a larger candidate pool?
I don't know. So at the time, I really felt like I was the best qualified because I had the 3 years of experience being an assistant for Ann, and I felt like I could transition, and elevate the program immediately. And I had very good relationships with most of the alumni, and I felt that I could carry the way Ann had had interacted with them for years and had sustained those relationships for years, I felt like I could do the same thing going forward.
And before we talk about your role as coach, could we step back and maybe talk about Ann just a little
Sure.
bit again? What can you talk about Ann's contributions to women's golf at Oklahoma State University and nationally?
I mean, nationally and at OSU is incredible. When you look at her body of work over, I guess if you starting in 78 or 77 when she did all the way up into 2000, I mean, you've got 22 years of being the leader there of young people, and some of the great players she had. I mean, she had players that played the tour for 20 years, and people that have gone on to do fantastic things, in the workforce and out in the country. Was the National Coach of the Year multiple times. Won Emeritus Service Awards multiple times for contributions to the game. Served on the Women's Golf Committee multiple times. Was part of the group that really started keeping statistics about each player and being able to share those statistics back and forth at the end of the year with stroke averages and the rankings of teams. She was on an early committee to start that. I haven't thought about this stuff, and I used to be a wizard at spitting this stuff out about 6 years ago, but everything that moved women's golf and collegiate golf, really, because the men were doing the same thing at the same time. I mean, just some of the automated scoring. I mean, she was on the front and the cusp of all of that. So, part of the rules changes from when she first started. Coaches couldn't even go out on the golf course. And then was part of the movement to get coaches out onto the golf course where they could actually interact with their athletes. And, before that, they used to just sit in the clubhouse and play cards. And really interesting. And, I mean, just she and Dale McNamara was the coach at Tulsa, and and Dale will tell you that Dale started a lot of she had uniforms for the first time for her teams, and I mean Ann was right there with her with that, and the kind of the national scheduling for women's golf, and they would try to go out and play against the best teams and to raise money to go travel and to have golf balls for her team. I mean there's so many things that she was a pioneer in. And if you look at the success of women's golf at Oklahoma State nationally compared to other women's sports, one of the reasons I think it's been, up until recently, it was superior at the national level. It's because of her and the influence and the involvement that she had with the Coaches Association as a national level, with the NCAA, with the Golf Committee as a national level, and just being a pioneer for the sport collegiately. Was there from the AIAW to when it transitioned to the NCAA, and you just can't put a price. I mean that's just invaluable. So.
And why do you think she was so successful? What was it about her?
Well, I don't know if you recall a little bit ago, I just talked about her ability to kind of be patient with people and find the right way to approach them to address an issue, more subtle. She had this ability to kind of accept who you were and to let you be yourself, but still attempt to get more out of you than you thought you could give. She was also very committed to making sure that you were a well-rounded person off the golf course and that you were growing between your ears as much as you were on the golf course. And that was really, really, really important. She'll tell a good story about how she had this great player on our team, she was on Weight Watchers, okay, the player. She was trying to lose some weight. Well, Ann drove that athlete to a Weight Watcher meeting during competition, not during the tournament, but after competition, so that she could stay in her routine. And I mean, just the extra things like that. I mean, I think most coaches would say, I'm sorry, now we all do that kind of stuff online, right? But that, in the mid 80s, that obviously didn't exist. You had to go to the meeting. Well, she would help the player find the meeting and drive them to the meeting on the road and, support those intricacies that I think in women's athletics are so prevalent. And she had an ability to make everybody think that it was okay, but yet we were still here to take care of business and to win, tournaments.
kind of synthesizing some of these things, what do you remember about her most as a coach, as a person? What stands out in your mind?
Oh, thousands. I mean, there's so many things, Jeremy. Ann was just, well, I mean, she has a funny, dry sense of humor. And the thing I remember Ann about most is that no matter what you brought to her, she could handle it. So, I mean, if it was and everything she made you feel like was the most important thing in the world. She never discounted or, well, you know how when you're a coach, you hear the same problem 30 years in a row. You can imagine how it is, times 8 athletes after 25 years. But when I was a freshman and I brought that exact same problem that she had 500 times.
Like the first time.
It was like the first time she'd ever heard it. And she had that ability to just make you feel like you were the most important thing at that one time. And I mean, it's a really good gift. Now, she can also turn that off and go take care of herself, which I think taught a lot of us that there's more to life and athletics than just what was going on that golf course. I mean, she was still very committed to her friends and still very committed to having a good time and still very committed to being off the golf course by a certain time so that you could, go home and have dinner and study and giving balance. Very good at coaching balance.
Great. So obviously she influenced you. Can you talk some ways in which she influenced your coaching philosophy?
I mean, balance would be key. And the listening aspect. And, understanding that everybody's going to bring something different to the table on your team. And you have to, you have to teach them to accept their roles. You have to find people that are going to accept their roles on the team. And getting people together, for something greater than just whatever their score was that day, and for them to understand that for 4 years in college you're going to play this kind of as a team sport. And it's weird, for golf. It's weird, but it was special. I mean, very, very, very special. I mean, just philosophically, she really taught me helped me understand how to listen, how to be open-minded, how to take advice from other people, how to try different theories and continue to learn from other people, and to try to apply that in your daily coaching or on the golf course so that you could get better.
I mean, all the times that you spent together as a player, but certainly as assistant coach, did she ever visit with you about some of the issues and challenges that she faced early on?
Oh, all the time. We talked about it all the time. I mean, she would talk about not so much the things in the department, because I don't think she wanted to taint my view of the inequities that happen in women's athletics. It was really more about the opportunities. And, that this was the first time they got to do this. This was the first time they got to give each player a dozen golf balls, where it was before it was 3 golf balls for the whole tournament. This was the first time we got to get uniforms. This was the first time we had enough money in the budget to travel to California. She really focused it more on opportunities and change and cultural change and how to stand up for what you believe in. The importance of equal opportunity than it was challenges. I mean, she didn't really take a negative approach to it. She took a positive approach to it. And I know that was hard for her because let's be honest, there was a lot of negativity, in the 80s with budgets and cutting sports, and it must have been very, very hard to be around at that time.
Did you talk a little bit about promoting the women's athletics programs, particularly golf, in the early days when they were merging the programs into one back in the 70s? Did she share some of her frustration, not the right word, some of her challenges? As you said, maybe opportunities, but in promoting women's golf.
Well, I think she looked at it as though it was her job to promote it. And that it was her job to get good players, and it was her job to be out in the community and, be around and available and to shake hands and kind of be the face of the program. I don't think back then coaches really looked for somebody else to promote their team. I think that they used their own team to promote their own success, and that's my opinion on how she viewed it. I don't know if she'd say the same thing, but I think that they took a lot of personal responsibility in that.
Amy Ann had, as you alluded to earlier in our conversations, had some concerns about equal treatment of women's golf program and women's sports generally, but certainly women's golf. And eventually led to her bringing a lawsuit, as you indicated, against the university. I'm trying to recall, do you remember which year that was?
I don't know what year it was filed, no, sir.
It was in the 80s?
It was in the 90s, actually.
In the 90s, okay.
Yes, sir.
And can you share some information about the suit? I mean, its origins and outcomes?
Well, what I recall is that, it was a Title VII Equal Pay Act, equal work for equal pay. So basically her premise is that she was the women's golf coach and she made X number of dollars. And the men's golf coach was making X number of dollars for doing the exact same job. And I guess there was a considerable disparity between those numbers. And so then that, went to court, and there was a settlement. I think she won the decision and made some money up for some of those years of inequitable pay. But then also I think there were some, I wouldn't say consequences so much, but in the settlement, the way it worked. I mean, at the end, I think it pushed her retirement date to kind of a line in the sand. And like I said earlier, I don't ever remember it being a cloud hanging over our program. I was an athlete when it happened. I don't ever remember her talking to us about it like it was a big deal. It was her thing. It was her private thing, and she didn't really involve the student athlete in it at the time. And I know now from working with her and working a little bit, in administration since then, is that I believe our women's basketball coach received a considerable raise because of it, as well as our softball coach. I don't know about other coaches at OSU, but I know that affected the disparity in pay significantly. And from what I understand, there was a very, very, very disparate, level of pay.
Did it impact Title IX issues at all in terms of?
Well, Title IX is not.
You're talking about salary, but did it impact? Was part of the Ann's issues though? What resources being put into women's sports, like women's golf is put into men's golf? Was that
not
part
in her
of that?
lawsuit? It was not, because those are two different laws: Title IX and Title VII.
Right.
And so pay and salary and equity of pay does not fall under Title IX.
Okay.
Quality of coaching falls under Title IX, and access to quality coaching falls under it, but not how much you're paid.